We don't know much about Vivian Maier. We know that she worked as a nanny for families on the North Shore from the mid-1950s into the 90s. She was kind of a loner. She spoke with a French accent. She had strong opinions about movies and politics. And on her day off, she always carried a camera.
First thing in the morning, comes a camera around her neck, her hat on, her shoes on, her coat on, and out she goes.
Vivian Maier worked and lived in the Bylanders' home in Wilmette from 1989 to 1993. They say they were happy with her work. And she accumulated a lot of stuff.
We were not allowed into her room, not that we would have, but it was stacked up to the ceiling with papers and boxes and boxes in our storage area downstairs in the basement.
Now, many of those boxes are here in an attic on the north side of Chicago.
This is 1963, just 1963 through 65 only.
Just 2 years.
Just 2 years. That's one box of negatives here.
In 2007, John Maloof was a 26-year-old real estate agent. He was working on a book about his Northwest Side neighborhood, and one day at an auction there were items from a repossessed storage locker, including a box filled with negatives.
I saw some of Marina Towers, and I thought it was Chicago. So I said, maybe we can use some of this for the book.
John bought that box for $400. There were 30,000 negatives inside. When he started scanning them, he didn't find anything for his book. But what he found took his breath away.
This is probably one of my favorite pictures. You have this woman in the 50s walking up to a 57 Chevy, and all you see is really her glow and the glow around her.
John also found self-portraits of the photographer. Who was this woman? He couldn't find her name anywhere in the boxes.
I actually just wanted to meet the person and ask for kind of advice on photography.
John contacted the other people who had picked up her boxes at the auction, and he bought those too. Now he has roughly 100,000 of her negatives, many of which have never been seen by anyone.
Well,
right?
All the stuff hasn't been looked at.
All of this stuff here?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bins. And then you have a box of rolls undeveloped.
Wait, this is a whole box of... John estimates that up to a third of the negatives he bought were still on the rolls that came out of the camera. Now, the main task for John and his friend Tony Ridson is to scan everything, to get a good look at her work and archive it. John says that when he finally found Vivian Maier's name in one of the boxes in 2009, a Google search turned up just one thing: an obituary from a few days earlier. That led him to a family she had worked for, and then another. And finally, a biography began to emerge. Vivian Maier was born in New York in 1926 and lived in both France and New York growing up. By her mid-20s, she was living permanently in the U.S. She lived with one family as a nanny in Highland Park for 16 years. The children she cared for have been quoted as saying she was like Mary Poppins to them, eccentric, delightful, taking them on great adventures. A later employer paints a more complex picture.
When I told neighbors and friends of ours about the interest about Vivian Maier, she says, that awful lady, she had terrible manners. Very strong, very determined, don't intervene in my space kind of attitude.
As John uncovered more and more of Vivian's photos, he knew he had stumbled onto something extraordinary. But he didn't know enough to know how significant she might be.
I didn't have any level of expertise to know what I was looking at.
The turning point came when he posted some of Vivian's photos on a street photography blog. He asked for opinions and advice, and by the next day he had 200 emails from around the world.
I mean, I had book offers, I had exhibition offers, and a few different documentary film offers, everything.
That was in 2009. It's clear that Vivian was a really private person. How do you think she would feel about the fact that this is all becoming so public?
I could say a couple of things to that. I'll never know, of course. I have an audio tape that she recorded, and she says a little tidbit about what she feels about, what happens after you die, and when somebody takes up after you.
Well, I suppose nothing is meant to last forever. We have to make room for other people. It's a wheel. You get on, you have to go to the end, and then someone else has the same opportunity to go to the end, and so on, and somebody else takes their place.
For Chicago Tonight, this is Jay Shefsky.
Wow, fascinating.